one foot in, one foot out is the worst place to be because nothing you do feels right then. At least when you've made a choice, you have a North Star. And when you're still in that middle zone, you're just being pulled in both directions, and you can only do that for so long.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back for a 2021 first episode of In the Trenches. And this morning, I'm happy to be joined by a friend that I've had a chance to not only watch and read and observe through social media, but now also through my role at Push Press, get a chance to connect with. And watching James over this last year, almost a year and a half, has been nothing but inspiring amidst all the challenge, not just the COVID challenge, but at the same time, he's taken a very uncharacteristically approach to actually buying some gyms where other gyms have been closing, other coaches have been quitting, folks have been shutting down. This gentleman has a very unique story. And so today on In the Trenches, I'm really, really happy to connect now face to face. There's been so many projects and so many things we've worked on before, but I'm really happy to get his story. And I think as our audience today will really dig in on a lot of this stuff. So thank you for joining us. James, brother, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Eric. Yeah, I'm like you had said, this past year and a half or so has been absolutely a whirlwind. I think I don't know that I've taken a day off since March 20th of 2020 when we got the news that we were closing. But I guess a little bit about that background and to begin with is I've been involved in CrossFit since about 2007. So this is now year 14, I guess, which is also the same time that I got into personal training to begin with. I was in school. I think at that time I was a sophomore in college. I was studying kinesiology at University of Illinois. And at that time I had been an athlete for about a decade, playing soccer, wrestling, running track and field. I was a pole vaulter, rock climber. I became a cheerleader in college for 3 years. And that was right around the time I found CrossFit. Yeah. So,
massive foundation sport.
Absolutely. And barbells complain a whole lot less when you drop them. So the transition was natural.
Yep.
I found CrossFit at the same time as the movie 300 came out. So I was 21, I was a sophomore in college, and I wanted to be in the best shape of my life. And so I looked into what are these guys doing, and came to find that they were training at this gym in Salt Lake City under Mark Twight. And you may know that whole story. And so I didn't really take it that seriously though until I graduated and I started working for Lifetime Fitness at the big box Globo facility that we all like to talk about now. But it was probably one of the best experiences that I could have had to get me to where I am now. I got to be part of a $1 billion company at 22 years old and given a lot of responsibility that I don't think I would have had otherwise, and a lot of opportunity. So I did that for 5 years, coaching CrossFit and working alongside at the personal training and doing training management and other things with Lifetime. And I got to kind of see the renegade side of CrossFit grow up through the dirty warehouse into what it is now, and also what it's like to actually run and manage a professional facility. And since being given the opportunity to have a gym or to purchase a gym in 2017, I've just been working as hard as I can to blend those two environments, because I think that they both have a lot that you can learn from. And I think that there's also holes in each business model. And so if you can take the best from both, create something new, and that's where we are today.
I think the managerial aspect from your franchise setting helps set you up light years ahead or leaps and bounds ahead of the classic CrossFit coach or classic CrossFit gym owner who maybe was a member or came from a different industry, got their level one, maybe paid some dues, maybe bartered a membership, and then was like, I'd like to buy my way in. And before they bought in, they're like, no managerial role, no ownership role, no leadership role, no nothing. But then they exchanged some dollars, signed some contracts, they own a gym, and that's it, right? They just that's their day one of work. What kind of either systems or processes or even like management roles did you feel were valuable from that franchise side that you brought with you? And you said, okay, maybe I'll use these as a foundation. Is there anything you brought with you?
Oh, absolutely. But I think I want to preface that by saying, by no means do I feel like I had it figured out, or do I feel like I have it figured out now? And I think that's an important thing to acknowledge and to accept and to be upfront about, because I think it's dangerous to say I'm experienced, I've got it all figured out, I know how to do this, right. Especially with what we've dealt with in the last year. I would say probably some of the biggest things that I've taken from there is working for Lifetime Fitness as a personal trainer. The first like real full-time job that I had worked moving furniture for years. I had worked as a bartender. I had worked in some other jobs that were that you were compensated by how hard you worked. And I think that was really interesting to learn early on, that moving furniture, you start work at 6 a.m. and you work until the job is done. And, bartending you develop a skill set, and if you're good at what you do, then you earn more money. And it never really appealed to me to be fixed in my level of effort. And we can maybe get to that too, because there was a time in my life that I had that. And the idea of like my success is ultimately on my own shoulders, and that I can't really rely on anybody else is, I think, what I've carried into, carried into this business.
Yeah, I mean, that's a massive motto that I know even a handful of different entrepreneurial, like in the veteran culture, the entrepreneurial push of like, no one is coming to save you. It's you. It's 100% on your shoulders. All your successes are because of you, and also all your failures.
Yeah. And I think that second part of that is the reason why a lot of people don't adopt that mentality. And I can't tell them that they're wrong, actually, because I can see there's a lot of merit in not having to accept the unintended consequences of every decision that you make. As the owner, as the guy in charge, like the buck now stops with me. And it's forced me to be really humble and to kind of take a step back and go like, oh, wow, I thought, you were talking about like what I've learned through this and the transition. I thought I've had it figured out multiple times. I thought like, okay, this is it. Now I get it. And then you get punched in the face again. And 3 months later, life is upside down. And then you go, okay, I figured it out now. And then it happens again and again and again. And you learn over time with enough reps that that's not going to stop. And it at some point it becomes exciting, and you learn like, okay, well, what new thing am I going to learn today? What new process am I going to develop? What new, like, how can I better serve my community? I know that sounds so vague and maybe cliche, but at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to is, if you can take care of the people who have taken care of you, you get it.
No, absolutely. That's the long game approach that I think a lot of front end coaches and trainers aren't necessarily either mature enough to understand or just haven't had, like you said, reps. It's very similar to, right, obviously the sport of weightlifting. You need reps on that bar. You need time under tension. You need the skill set that's developed over years, not workouts. And so in the business aspect, it's not, well, I have all this money and I bought this gym and it's my first year and I know it all. No, you don't. Let's have that exact same conversation at year 5. And then let's have that conversation again at year 10. And then over here at year 15, let's go down the road and figure it out. And, the 15-year James looks back at the 2-year James and you're just like, oh man, I should have shut my mouth more and just paid more attention, took more notes, huh?
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting now being in the position where I feel like my role has switched, or I have employees and I have interns, and part of me still wants to be their peer, because I don't look at them and think I'm better than you by any means. I look at them and I think like I've just had more time to put the reps in, and that's been my message for the last decade or longer. Is there's nothing inherently special about me. I'm not that talented, I don't think. I just have been doing the things we say that we tell that other people should be doing for a long, long time. I've been in the same industry for a long time. I've practiced and trained the same sports for a long time, and that's what's ultimately gotten me here. I still have so much further to go, but
speaking of
saying a lot. Oh,
I was going to say, sorry, go ahead.
On that note, I've been saying a lot lately, and reminding people that you have to be bad at something long enough to get good at it. And in normal activities of being an adult, we're punished constantly for failing. And so it's really, really easy to not put yourself out there and to just say like, well, it's just as well that I don't try. But I think if the goal is bigger than your resistance to it, ultimately you don't have a choice, and you're going to find a way to get it done.
Agreed. No, agreed. 100%. That's exceptionally valuable. And I think a lot of folks they shouldn't need to, but the faster they realize that, the better.
Oh, absolutely.
Right on. So let's segue real quick into the sport of weightlifting, because that's been a significant portion for you that I think you've derived a lot of either fulfillment or passion out of. How did you stumble? Did CrossFit open the door to snatch and clean and jerk for you, and then you just said, I love this, let's go that way?
I mean, ultimately that was the catalyst, but I learned about the lifts in college, being able to train in a private strength and conditioning facility as a Division I varsity athlete. We won't put cheerleader. We won't say that anymore. But anyways, so I learned the lifts then. I've loved being in the gym. Ever since I was 12, 13 years old, wanting to get into the weight room and being enamored by the guys who can bench press 135, and wanting to be that guy one day. And, obviously the goals shift and change over time. But by the time I had found CrossFit, I was already doing the movements poorly, and I had more experience than the rest of my shirtless buddies who didn't know what they were doing either. And I was halfway decent. And so then people started listening to me. And then I was like, well, I love this. I'm going to go get certified in CrossFit. So I lived in Chicago at the time. And back then, like, I had to wait probably 2 months to drive to Minneapolis to go do a level 1. They weren't around every corner every week. But we did that. And I traded services for membership and started coaching services for membership, started coaching at a gym, started doing CrossFit, found myself gravitating towards the strength pieces more and more. And, like, oh, I'm just going to do the strength today and drop out of the Metcon. I realized fairly quickly in the CrossFit journey that I was better at lifting heavy than breathing heavy. And after competing in regionals as a team and not really getting the results that I wanted, I decided it was time to make the transition fully, and competed in my first competed in my first American Open in 2010, and haven't stopped since.
I love it. For those that don't know you or don't know, what age bracket are you? Are you a master's lifter yet, or are you under 35?
So I turned 35 this year, which means 6 days ago I became a master's athlete. Yep. So I'm actually excited because for the last couple of years I felt like I've been in purgatory. Like I'm too old to compete with the young bucks. I just competed in the American Open a couple weeks ago and took like last place in my weight class, but it was on a whim, like 4 days notice, and I'm still very happy with the performance. My priorities have changed, right? But yeah, I've been competing in weightlifting for the last decade nationally.
Love it. So it's a sport that we've not only had a chance to embrace fully, and I mean fully. We had a fantastic coaching staff. We had both the USAW team as well as a youth team that kind of did the exact same focus, a little bit more sport focused, but still snatch and clean and jerk cyclically. But we also fell in love with hosting, and our meet director held on average 3 meets a year at the not developmental level, but at least local enough that folks could show up and it could be their first meet or their fourth meet or their fifth meet. But the big bang for us was that we've had a chance to host National Masters and American Masters a couple of times. And that has been so fun to get folks coming out, and you meet these guys that they've been snatching, clean and jerking for 45, 50 years. And they're still walking out on the platform. And it's inspirational to see that. So I'm glad that sport has been a part of your development. Has being an athlete helped you in turn be a better coach? Because sometimes we don't see that transition well. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it just creates different challenges. Yes, it's helped me, but it's also hurt me. It's helped me in a way that I've been there before, and I can talk through a lot of the things that people will. I can set the expectation very well because I understand what it feels like to be in that position. The one thing that's been a challenge for me, especially like in the earlier days, was having been a lifelong athlete. I don't necessarily know what it feels like to not be able to physically do a push-up. And so the cues that I had to learn to give are completely separate from what I would give myself or someone like me. That was tough. I walked in, with a long history of rock climbing and wrestling and pole vault experience. And so like doing a muscle up was something that I learned really quickly. And so I never had to go through the progressions to develop them. And, like I said, that's helpful in some ways, but it hurts also in the fact that like you don't always appreciate the effort that it takes to develop that skill for someone who it doesn't come, I don't know if it doesn't come naturally to, but who doesn't have the same life experience that you have leading up to it.
Huge. That's a huge understanding of the types of folks that are walking through the door aren't necessarily you. Yeah.
But even what you just said, and like what I almost said was like, it doesn't come naturally. It didn't come naturally. And that's the thing that I think it's so easy to say that. And when you're in that outside and you see somebody who can do the things you want to be able to do, it's so easy to just to throw that label on it.
Right.
But I've been trying to be very intentional by saying, this is just an accumulation of life experience. I have this, and this that leads me to be able to do this now. And I think that's important because the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is today. It's it's the exact same idea, right? Don't forget the fact that you don't have that same background. Treat today like day zero. And if you're 40, you got to think that there's 40 more years of exercise. So like the next 6 weeks or whatever your timeline is don't really matter that much. And if we can
on that trajectory for you.
Yeah. And like you were saying earlier, if you can learn to play the long game, unless you're planning on going out soon, always play the long game.
Yeah. When your time is up, if your time is up in 2 weeks, let's get after it. But man, so you're in Scottsdale. For those that don't know where your 3 gyms are located, how'd you end up getting from Chicago down to Arizona?
I moved here at the end of 2012 for the primary reason was my dad. So my dad he's 76. He's a Vietnam veteran. He's a Marine. He's got diabetes. He's developing dementia. And he wasn't in great shape when I came to visit in 2012. And I realized at the time, my life was kind of all over the place back in Chicago. I didn't have a whole lot keeping me there. And I felt like it was just like, if I couldn't help my own family, then what was the point of like living a life that I'd helped other people get fit and healthy. So on 2 weeks notice, I quit Lifetime. I packed everything I had and I moved here. And I moved in with him. And for 6 months, I did all the grocery shopping. I made all the meals. I helped him lose about 60 pounds. Wow. It was about 40 then, 35, 40 then. And now he's down to 60 pounds. He's by no means healthy. and but he's doing a hell of a lot better than he was. So that's what got me here. What kept me here was I found Joe Machella, the weightlifting coach in Mesa. He was introduced by my former weightlifting coach, Roger Nielsen in Chicago, who now lives here also and is working with us, which is awesome. And, between training kind of full time and the position that he helped me apply for, Joe helped me apply for at the university, where I ended up teaching exercise science online for 7 years. It created a lot of opportunity for me elsewhere. So I was teaching online, which allowed me to train the way I did, and allowed me the flexibility to work relatively remotely, so I could travel some. It's been a really amazing journey.
Man, it's chock full of both adventure and kind of the unknown, but also at the same time infused with the things you love. When then did the opportunity arise for Infinite Strength? Was that something that you were thinking of, I want to get into, or was it plopped into your lap?
Well, the prospect of being a gym owner is, I think a lot of people, everybody in the industry has that thought. I've never particularly loved the idea of being tied down to something. I think I like having options available to me. But then I also, after having been in the industry for 10 years or so at the time, I started thinking, like, what is my long-term plan? Like, what am I, if not this, then what? And my boss at the university asked me a question once that was, would you rather help a lot of people a little bit or a few people a great deal? And after thinking hard about that, helping a few people a great deal is far more beneficial. I'd rather go deep than wide, right? And being a micro gym owner seemed to be one of the best ways to do that, to be able to take my experience, my knowledge, my whatever, teach it to my staff, and then distribute it to our members, and have this, like I said, just be able to provide a lot of the opportunity that's been given to me, right, or create the opportunity again.
I dig it. It's interesting that you equated that to you'd rather go deep than wide, because I know there are a handful of folks that we've interviewed that they want to sit on the opposite side, which is perfectly fine. They want not necessarily the mass appeal, but they want to go as wide as possible. And my challenge to those individuals has always been on the retention side or on the long term, like, what about 1 year from now? What about 2 years from now? Have you thought about sustainability or longevity? And they're almost all answers were no. And so you're the flip side to that. And I'm interested to hear your why. Why deeper? Do you feel the connection? There's an emotional piece, a human piece there, or is that where you can remain focused the longest for it also?
I think all of the above, honestly. I don't see a downside to the long game, honestly. To be able to greatly affect a person's life, and to be able to be there and see it from start to finish, see it through, is incredibly meaningful to me. I don't want 1 million people to quote me, right? I want 10 people to run through walls for me. And
love that quote.
I just made it up. But it's that idea. And
that's episode title.
Okay. There's so many things I could say, right? It's cheaper to keep her. From a retention side of things, right? You look at statistics in the industry, and the micro gym industry, the average length of engagement is like 8 months, just in micro gyms. And when I did that same math for Infinite, about 1.5 years into being owner, our average length of engagement was 23 months, and we've only grown from there. Hammer CrossFit is the longest standing CrossFit gym in Arizona. They've opened in 2008, and they have members who have been there for a decade. Who now they have shirts that say a decade of fitness. And I think that's incredible. Spark is in its 7th year of members who have been here since day one. And having had the opportunity to be part of all of these from the early days until now, and watching the business grow, watching the people grow, watching the families we've created, the lives we've changed. It's it's monumental. And I wasn't getting that same experience in the virtual setting, with a bunch of students having 6-week classes. I wasn't getting that in, it's a
real quick in, real quick.
It's just, and this is just my way of doing things. Like you said, there are people who choose to go the opposite way, and they're very, very successful doing it. Going the online personal training route for $10 a month. If you get 1,000 people doing that, like, well, hell, you're doing better than me. Yeah.
Dollar side, but what you make, I guess, in the scale volume on the dollars, you obviously something has to give, and it's the relationship and the depth of that relationship. I'm assuming.
Absolutely. Well, another conversation that I have with people who tell me that they want to be a gym owner, or who are gym owners, or who want to run their own business in general, is I really do believe there are two ways to be fulfilled with work-life balance, or with work and life. I hate that balance term. I think you can either accept the fact that you're going to do something you love and let it kill you, and that you're not going to shut it off. It will not be a 9 to 5. It is going to sometimes feel completely overwhelming. It's emotionally draining. It is the hardest thing you'll ever do, but it's also very fulfilling. Or you can find a job that pays you well and allows you to shut it down. Right? Exactly. And use that, the resources and time and everything else that you have, because you're not dedicating it to that thing, to go find something that fulfills you. And I don't think that I think you have to make that choice consciously. Because I think the only way that you can be unhappy is if you don't, is if you try to have one foot in both. And that's been a big thing for me in the last year and a half too, because I've had to say, like, this comes first. My people come first. And I might have to, there are going to be some nights that I don't sleep. There are going to be some nights that I'm running around like crazy. Relationships are going to have some strain on them. Financials that are going to have some strain, but it's for the bigger picture. And that's what we're fighting for.
Right, man. Well, it sounds, if someone's tuning in and listening today, it sounds like things have clicked for you every single step of the way, but under the hood, there was a pretty significant issue. Let's talk through that. Where do you want to start? I equate myself to I'm like a duck, like calm on the surface and then just paddling like hell underneath. Mm-hmm. So I think what you're alluding to is what we talked about before we got online is, so I've had my own struggles, with my own demons, right? I had a little bit of a rough growing up. I don't have the best family dynamics. I played sports growing up, but I didn't get any support. No one in my family really wanted me to play sports, and therefore they weren't very supportive of it. And so I did it that much more. I think it was like an act of rebellion, really. And then when I got old enough to be on my own, more rebellion was getting into partying and drinking and drugs. And I did that. I had a good 17-year run. and I went pro early. They let me retire. And about 2.5 years ago, it was, I think, 8 or so months into owning my first gym, I said to myself, like, something needs to change or you're going to lose all of this. And I didn't have a catastrophic event. I'd had plenty previous to that. But I made the decision to, that my community was more important than me. It's like, how do you say that? And my selfish interest. Yeah. No kidding. So what did you decide to hang up?
Alcohol. I've been 2.5 years sober.
Outstanding.
And and it's the one thing in my life that I've never had control over, or that I feel like it has been completely out of my control. I'm so disciplined in everywhere else in my life. I'm so, I've got good self-control. But when it came to drinking, it was like, once you stop, you don't stop. 0 to 100, whatever kind of, quote you want to put there. Yeah, I've spent enough nights in my car. I've ruined enough friendships and relationships and been kicked out of places and ended up without a place to live and suffered through DUI and other legal battles regarding alcohol. And none of it seemed to be enough, which was interesting to me. I always said some justification for why I was unfortunate that time or why I was in the right somehow or it was somebody else's fault. And after years and years and years of doing that, and then starting to see the life I wanted to have for myself and those around me, and realizing that was the biggest thing that was holding me back. It wasn't as difficult of a decision as I think I would have imagined it to be.
Now on the
and my life.
I was going to say, now on the flip side, looking back, it's some might say 2.5 years. God, how did you do it? Or do you regret it? Or what have you learned? You've got a little bit of hindsight now behind you. Do you feel like it's the best decision you made in your life?
My whole life, absolutely, without a doubt. It's allowed me to deepen my connections with people. It's allowed me to focus more on the things that are important to me. It's allowed me to take a little bit better control of my own fitness also too. Like I don't have to punish myself anymore like I thought I used to. I look at fitness now as it's an outlet. I have my sport and then I have my fitness, but my fitness isn't punishment. It's almost like therapy.
Right.
And
it's enjoyable.
Yeah. And it's also allowed me to help a lot of other people. Come find out that I'm not alone in that either. And that's amazing because when you're going through anything that's shameful or embarrassing or just uncomfortable in general, it's so easy to think like, God, why does everybody else have it so easy? And then when you start to open up about those things that are uncomfortable, you realize that like everybody is going through this stuff. And I've helped friends now get sober, and some of my members are people I've met through recovery, and it all feeds into the bigger message. We're looking for later this year to start a 501c3 and get something going here in Arizona, because I have the locations for it, and there's definitely the demand, and we have plenty of people who want to help, and that's something that I'm really excited about this coming year.
Man, I get it. I had a former business partner who was exceptionally strong in her sobriety and exceptionally strong in the education and support around helping others, through their journey. And she loved fitness as much as she loved helping others. And she turned into being a wonderful master's coach, being a master's weightlifter and, a fitness enthusiast herself. So I'm pretty pumped to hear that you've got some ideas down the road of kind of blending those two services, because you're right. The addiction needs are alive and well. And not often do people have decent coping mechanisms or a healthy environment to surround themselves in. It's almost as if it's your next evolution of coaching, teaching, and training is helping guide folks down that road. Man, that's impressive. Because you touched on the fact that you've got the space. Let's circle back around real quick. You've got 3 locations that you were able to have. How close are your gyms, and how did you decide you were going to pick all 3 of them up? Or you had one. How'd you pick up the other 2?
Well, so I actually helped to start Spark CrossFit back in 2014 before I ever was involved at Infinite. And that was actually the day I left Lifetime for good. I walked into Spark CrossFit and they were maybe a week into opening. And I said like, hey guys, this is who I am. This is what I'd like to do. Is there anything I can help with? And we built it from the ground up. And back then it was CrossFit Black Storm. It was in a building back behind us where we are now. But our first 50 members, I would say half of them are probably still here. And that's pretty cool. I was only here for about a year before going up to Infinite and starting Scottsdale Barbell, which is that's how I got connected up that way, was because they had more opportunity for me to start a barbell club. And the previous owner became my training partner, and we ran with that for a few years. And then when the opportunity came to purchase Infinite, I decided then Like Phoenix is my home. I'm going to put some roots down here. I want to give back, like I mentioned earlier, the same opportunity that people have offered me. That if I can create a space where people feel comfortable to put forth effort and to see positive results from that effort, then they can improve their lives through way more than fitness.
Right.
And I spent about 2.5 years just digging in and making that place all I could. And COVID hit. Like I said, March 20th is when we got the news that we were going to have to shut down for the first time. And again, summation of life experience. I had plenty of experience using Zoom. We were one of Zoom's first clients for the university. So I've been working with them since 2015. I put a message out to the community. I met with all of my coaches. We did equipment rental over the weekend. We built an outdoor facility, and we started coaching online classes as early as 5:30 in the morning, Monday morning. And so it was almost seamless. I mean, as seamless as that could be, right? The nice thing about Arizona too is that we were about a week or two behind most of the rest of the country. So I got to see what worked, what didn't, and take the best of all the everything that I had seen, and I looked like a rock star. But I think that there's a message there also in that you don't have to reinvent the wheel necessarily. You just have to keep an ear to the ground and pay attention. And that's another thing that I try to promote a lot, that the awareness piece, because it can make you look a lot better than you are if you just pay attention.
I think that to that point, real quick, I would say that unlucky. For some, it was an unlucky advantage. It was unlucky all the way around. The gym owners were just getting smashed professionally, but some states had the advantage to sit back for a moment and watch, right? So obviously you had, rolling regulations or rolling mandates. And at this point, here we are almost 1 year later, frustratingly, I'll leave it at that. Second hits, third hits, fourth hits, folks are adapting faster this year than they were even a year ago. Year 3 gyms are running. You're doing services. You're providing services. What else have you done to kind of stay ahead of it where you are based on what you're seeing and learning from around the country? Anything different?
I think at the end of the day, my message to my community was, I'm going to, no matter what obstacles we're given, I'm going to do everything I can to continue delivering a service that we promised. We want to provide you with opportunity. That message has been loud and clear from the beginning. And so if we have to wear masks to the gym, fine. If we have to have a reservation system, fine. If we have to keep the doors open when it's cold so the circulation is better, fine. We will adapt. We will overcome. We will be just fine. And our staff having that mentality, I think, has trickled into the membership very well, because for the most part, they've been on board with everything that we've done. They want to be there also. Nobody wants to get unfit. Nobody wants to lose all the hard work that they put in. And I think if you can just maintain some level of stoicism, I guess, focus on what you can control and don't worry about the other stuff. I think that's what I found. I've watched other business owners adopt that philosophy and be successful, and I've tried to keep it in the forefront of my own mind. It's certainly not easy, because every single day I wake up and it just seems like there's something new that we get to deal with.
Here you go. Wednesday for you on Friday. Yeah.
Oh man. But like I said earlier too, it keeps me from having to guess what the next step is going to be. Because my plates are full, and the gyms right now. So I have one in Scottsdale, one in Phoenix, which is near the airport. Those two are only about 20 minutes from each other. The Hammer location is on the west side of town, in Peoria, and it's a little bit further. But we were talking about my dad a little bit earlier. I just moved in with him on Sunday to help better take care of him. So I made a room in his house, and I live there now, and he lives about 20 to 25 minutes from each of the gyms. And so in a way that's actually beneficial to me too, because I can be closer to all three communities. The eventual goal is to sometime this year unite them under one flag, and assuming that goes according to plan, and assuming that what's been happening in the landscape of fitness continues, I imagine that there will be some more opportunity reasonably soon, and I would like to be in a position to capitalize on that.
Right. And I very much think you will, or that you can, based upon what you've learned so far, even in just this last year. Speaking of that, like you're playing your own long game, you're playing a business long game, you're watching the landscape around you, in the area that you've got influence and control. At Push Press, we are a gym management software company that helps facilitate a few thousand gyms. We have our rock star gyms that are doing really well, and we've got beginner gyms. I mean, folks that have been around 10, 15 years even that have switched over to the model. But we also have a significant group of individuals who are on that fence, and they're exceptionally uncertain as to what their future looks like as a gym owner. We know that there have been, we're over 100, not Push Press gyms, but we're over 100 micro gyms just in our area, Los Angeles County down to San Diego. 100 CrossFit gyms have closed. I mean, just closed, sold the gear, walked away. If you could use today's platform to speak to that owner or multiple owners that are on the fence, they got one foot in, they got one foot out, they're uncertain, they're not sure. Any words of wisdom, any like reflections or dig into your soul moments that may help boost them one direction or the other? Any thoughts?
Wow, that's a big question. And I think I might want to start by saying I don't think there's a right answer. I think that's the first thing you have to acknowledge, is that whatever answer you choose is the right answer for you, because this isn't for everybody. And I could imagine if I had a life that was different, where I had a family and other responsibilities that pulled away from me, where I didn't have the opportunity to spend 60, 70, 80 plus hours a week doing this, that I would ask myself the same thing. And make no mistake, I'm uncertain about my future. Every morning, I think one of the first things I've gotten in the habit of doing is like open up the bank account and saying, just making sure that nothing catastrophic has happened.
Yep.
And there's a fear that I live with every day, that something like that we're just going to get shut down again, and that these three things are going to become unsustainable, and then I'll have to navigate that. But even still, even if that were to happen, I would find a way to do what I'm doing on a smaller scale. And for me, that's the answer. It's I'm knowing that knowing that irrespective of what happens, like I'm going to do what I can to fulfill the promise that I set, makes it a no-brainer for me. And not everybody feels that way. And especially, like you said, if you were a paying member, and you liked this thing and it seemed like a good idea and it's not turning out the way you planned, then get out, man. Get out while you still can. Get out before you're in real trouble. The thing about America is you can only fall so far. There's always someone ready to bail you out. But on that same token, I think if this is what your calling is, if this is your mission, then don't be afraid to take the risk. You, like we said before about the career choices, 1 foot in, 1 foot out is the worst place to be, because nothing you do feels right then. At least when you've made a choice, you have a North Star. And when you're still in that middle zone, you're just being pulled in both directions, and you can only do that for so long. So I think that COVID ended up facilitating a lot of what was probably going to happen anyway. It just sped up the process.
Yep, agreed. I would agree with that 100%, man. Well, I hope that those individuals that are watching today or taking notes today may help them kind of in their decision-making process figure out their next steps. Because here we are. I mean, this is January is usually the excited time for folks. They're, reorganizing, reorienting for clients. We're trying to have them move in the direction of their North Star, their goals, where their priorities lay. And we as educators or coaches get a chance to say, here, let's paint this picture. Let's walk you down this road together, coach and client, and obviously business. For folks that listened in today or might be interested in learning about not only about you, but your gyms, but then also what it is that you think you're going to be doing here in the future, how do they find you or where can they find you?
I would say probably the easiest place is Instagram these days. I have my own personal Gym 1030, and then CrossFit Infinite Strength, Spark CrossFit, Hammer CrossFit, Scottsdale Barbell, and Duel in the Desert 2020. I mean, we've got it's there are no shortage of ways to reach me. And I've actually, interestingly enough, through the Push Press platform, I've had a couple people reach out to me, new gym owners, aspiring gym owners, people who are looking to get on board with your services. And I love that. I feel honored. Right. Someone says, hey, I had a call with Nick and he recommended I talk to you about this. And it's like, yeah, I would love to help. Because you guys have been nothing but amazing. I had my first conversation with Nick in, 2016, maybe, probably a year and a half before we ever went with Push Press. And he never pushed me. We just became friends. And it felt like a really natural transition. And then, in the last 3 years or so with you guys, I've got about a dozen more friends, and that's really cool. So to be able to extend that community or to grow it, and for you to help us, for me to help you, and for us to help everybody else,
it works.
An honor.
It works. I mean, we're in this lucky spot where the company is both front facing and rear facing, owned by gym owners or operated by gym owners, or all of us that are previous gym owners. We've sat in your seat, and many of the employees actually still sit in the coaching role, the gym ownership seat. And really, it's why we titled this "In the Trenches," because your world is our world. We are all in the exact same community. Man, James, thank you so much for today. I sincerely appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know you are busy. So for those that are watching, not only does he have the gym ownership hat, but he's got 3 gym ownership hats and so much more. But thank you so much for your time, brother. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, Eric. Thank you so much. I love the opportunity.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure you like our channel, subscribe, and check out our other videos right here.